Welcome back from that short break. You're still watching Sunrise at Sea right here on CTV. I hope you're having a wonderful time with us. If you haven't yet followed us on social media, please go to our social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and that is at CTV Uganda. Like, share, subscribe, tell everybody. You can also follow me on my personal social media handles, and that's on Twitter and Instagram, and that's at ApolloSarah1. Welcome to our views. My name is Apollo Sarah, and in studio with me, the usual suspects, Shivan Alma and Kira Natozo.
Hey girl.
Hello ladies.
Hi.
You all right?
Good. How are you?
For our hot topic of discussion today, we are going to be discussing, should children be given the liberty to choose their own schools? Now, we all know that schools have been closed for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
A report by UNICEF has reported that Uganda has had schools locked for the longest around the world, followed by Nepal and Bolivia. And it's the only country in Africa that still has schools closed. Mm-hmm. Now, the Ministry of Education and Sports released a 12-month calendar plan for the resumption of studies, and it's as follows. So first term is going to start on January 10th of 2022 and go all the way to April 15th of 2022. Term 2 will start on May 9th and go to August 12th of 2022, and third term will begin on September 5th all the way to December 9th. 2022. Now, the closure of schools was put in place, that was in 2020 in March, when the president closed schools. Earlier this year, they opened up a bit for people in tertiary institutions and, you know, candidate classes, but then again quickly closed. And this has affected about 15 million students across the country. And it's also reported that about 30% of that number of students will not be able to return to school for many reasons, you know, increase in teenage pregnancy, and also because a lot of parents have lost income. Yeah. They are not able to, you know, pay school fees, and a number of private schools have closed because teachers are refusing to go back to the profession because they feel the pandemic has shown that it is not a sustainable, or rather sustainable, I say that in quotes, sustainable or lucrative, you know, business. So ladies, our question today, should children be given the liberty to choose their own schools? No. Why not? What?
No.
Kira, why?
One, I think kids get comfortable. You know, if you're given an option, yeah, you're obviously going to look out for everything you're interested in. Yeah, and when you realize that most kids, when you give them an option, yeah, now like in schools, you realize that some will choose schools because the environment is very comfortable. Yeah. Yes. Some because there is freedom. You can you can have gadgets. Yeah. Others, it depends on the kind of food you know you eat. Very important.
Yes.
Yeah. And then others because of friends. Yeah. So if you give a child a liberty to pick a school or to choose a school, yeah, I think they're not really going to put so many things in consideration. For instance, school fees. Yeah, a kid may want to go to a school that actually pays 2 million or 1 million or even 4 million. Yeah, and you realize that a parent cannot actually afford that. So with me, when it comes to children picking their schools, I don't think it's the way to go.
I don't think it's an issue. To a greater extent, in my perspective, to a greater extent, I feel like children need to be allowed to pick their own schools. It depends. I mean, from where I'm coming from, or what I mean is, it would be nice to see my child sitting down on a round table and saying, you know what, mommy, I want to go to this school because of this and this and this and this. And I'll tell you, okay, you want this school, they have good food, they allow hair, they allow you to do it, to have your gadgets, but hey, guess what?
Yes.
The money is like 6.2.
Yeah.
And I tell you, you know what, my daughter, we cannot afford this. However, can we go to this other school? So me, I think it is about having candid conversations, having sit-down conversations. However, I wouldn't force my children to go to a school that they did not want to, because I want my child to be having an education where they're comfortable. So I do not want them to be, mommy, the reason I perform badly or the reason this is happening, it's your fault. You forced me to go to this school. So I don't want them to have a reason as to who to blame. So for me, I think it is okay for a child to choose their own school.
Yes, you know, with the schools are opening up next month, and one of the parents' biggest concern is school fees. Government did put in a directive for private schools and even government schools, you know, just the whole education sector in general, to not hike in, you know, school fees. However, a number of schools, if not all of them, have you know, turned a blind ear to this directive and gone ahead to even double, some even tripled, you know, the school fees, because their reason is that they have to put in place COVID-19 SOPs to ensure that they can, you know, minimize or prevent any spread of COVID-19 in the schools. So that is their reason as to why they're hiking the school fees, and that is a big concern for every parent. It's a big concern for me. And the DP party president, that is Mr. Norbert Mao, did also call up to government to say that please put aside an emergency fund to aid, you know, private schools, so that the parents do not have to suffer, you know, by paying, you know, double fees, and or, you know, or even triple fees, COVID expenses, because it is too much. The government pledged to put 32 billion aside to assist the private sector, but then they said that now they're not going to do it. Now, if they're not going to help, what can the teachers do, or what can the owners of the school do? Because a lot of them some of them open up schools for, you know, for business purposes, you know. It is
many.
Is that the education?
That's the wrong thing. You see, that's the problem. And also in relation to government, I mean, I feel like when it comes to the education system as a pan now, because we saw that government had actually put aside a fund, though it has not yet been delivered for government schools. So no one is talking about private schools. However, here's the thing. I may come off, I do not want to come off insensitive or anything, but I feel like when it comes to education, when it comes to teaching, there are some jobs that are just about passion. If you're in it for the business, you will get frustrated.
If you're in for the
being
money.
A teacher and setting up a school needs to come from your heart. You have the desire to educate younger people, but if it comes from an aspect of it's a money-making business, it's going to fail you.
So I want to ask, we've all had an education, all of us here on set. Did you choose your school? You, Kira, who is saying no.
She did choose her school.
Did you choose your own school? And if not, do you think your parents made the right decision for you?
I didn't choose my school.
Did you like your school?
I didn't choose my school. My parents have always dictated literally every movement or everything
when it comes to your academics.
Life. Yes. Okay. So the schools I went to, it was them. Yes, you may have a conversation, be like, yeah, Dad, I want to go to this school and that school. But if he says you're going to go there, that's where you're going to go. And we had this whole thing of whereby if Sarah, you're my sister and you're in that school, everyone is going to go to that school. But obviously I didn't like the school, some of them. But eventually, you know, you learn different culture. You get to appreciate, you know, certain things about these schools. And it reached a point whereby he actually asked me, like, do you want to leave the school? You know, like he actually asks you one-on-one conversation if you're actually comfortable with the school that you're actually in. Is it affecting your studies? And if it's a no and you still want to be that, then you stay there.
Yeah.
So
he later gave you the liberty to choose whether you wanted to stay in that school or not.
And I said no. I said I wanted to stay there.
You wanted to stay there?
Yes.
Oh, because
I grew to love the school.
It worked out.
It worked out eventually.
What about you, Shivan?
My parents gave me the liberty to choose the school that I wanted, but every time I chose, of course, 1 or 2 times I chose schools and they were like, but Shivan, we cannot afford this kind of school fees. However, would come to a round table and say, okay, if we cannot afford this, then maybe can we do it in your advanced education? Like, can you maybe go to this particular school that you actually wanted to go to? But also, one of the things that I actually remember in regard to choosing schools, there is this one time that I was in my S2. I was joining S3.
Yeah.
And I brought my report card home and I had performed so badly. So my dad asked me, what kind of performance is this? I said, I don't like that school anymore. Then he said, is that the reason why you're performing badly? I said, yes, I don't want the school anymore. But then he was like, but you're the one who chose it. At that moment, I felt, I wish he was the one who had chosen it. But now that it is on me, I had to take responsibility. So I told him, you know what, I accept that I performed badly and it's not the school's fault, but still, I want to change the school.
So what should students look out for when they're picking a school? Because many times their rationale goes to, oh no, my friend is going to that school, so I want to go to the schools. But what should they actually look out for? Let's first start with the students, and then we'll talk about the parents, because the parents finance it anyway.
Yeah, right. Well, for the students, I think don't go to a school because your friend is going to that school, because it's not about your friend, it is about you. So when you're looking for a school, think about, what do you want? As a student, I would always look for, what do I want? Where is my most comfort? I also made sure I look for schools that are Christian based, because that is a kind of environment I wanted to be raised in. Also, I would mostly look for, where like they're more lenient on the girls, like can they allow me grow my hair? I'm sorry guys, but these are the things I used to look out for. So the topmost was hair, after hair, then Christian education, like is it Christian founded? Then I would go to comfortability. Am I comfortable here? And of course I looked through the punishments. If the punishments had things like, because I remember there's a school I chose for myself, and their punishments was clearing a whole forest. And I'm like, what was I thinking? So it's very important that you look at your comfortability, but also I know very many students don't look at this, but it's very important that you look even at their stats, how have they been performing, You want to associate yourself with schools that, have a bit of good discipline, and also they perform well, so that they can encourage you. So for me, that is what I would look out for.
For me personally, for my education, and I thank my parents for this, because they chose really well for me. It's only my high school where I got to choose which school that I wanted to go to. For my primary school, I was in boarding school. And we had, when I was in my candidate class, P7, we had a number of secondary schools come and visit us on our career day to sort of like market or, advertise their school. And they would bring like the OBs or OGs from our primary school, from that school, to come and visit. So when my OBs and OGs came from my, at the time, high school, that was St. Lawrence. When they came from St. Lawrence, they're like, oh, look at us, we have our hair,
So
all
you
that
wanted,
stuff. I was like, Mommy, this is the school.
This is the one I want.
This is the one.
Hair is very important.
She did ask me to justify why I wanted the school, besides them keeping hair. So I told her, you know what, Mommy, because in my primary I was very involved in music and MDD and all that stuff. So I told her, Mommy, I feel like this school will help me build on my talent. And then she was like, you know what, sold. Let's go do a year. If I don't like how you're doing it, I am sending you to a Catholic boarding school over there. Far away.
No more pleasure.
But for me personally, I think it's very important when a student is picking a school, pick a school that is going to support your interests and your talents. I think it's very important.
Very, very important.
You don't just have to go in and because they have had, I don't know, the most first grades in the past 5 years. It's not about other students. It's what about the school can do for you as a student. If you're going to leave that school with having learned at least 1 or 2 lessons, that you can carry forward in your life, I think that is very important. It's a win. It's a win. And for you, Kira, what do you think a student should look forward to?
When it comes to picking schools, I always wanted to go to schools that had hair. But even when the schools actually allowed students to have hair,
Still veiled.
My parents, mostly my dad, no. For some reason, he always had this at the back of his mind that when you have hair, you're not going to be serious.
You're going to be distracted.
Yes, and you're going to be distracted. So it was always chop, 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 But however, I love the fact that the schools actually my parents picked for me. One, the religious aspect of it.
Yes.
The Muslim schools, most of them. And some were actually, I've been to actually Catholic school. I've been around Christians and Catholics, and it was good. You get to see both sides of the spectrum. Then the other thing I also considered when picking school was the environment. The environment is very, very important, because at the end of the day, if your mind is not at ease, you're not going to perform well. If the teachers, in the school are not really up to speed, you're not going to do well. So.
And at what age should a child have the liberty to choose? is it open to them throughout their education, you know, from kindergarten, okay, kindergarten don't know, but from, say, primary school all the way to university or college, should you give them the liberty to choose all the way, or you can dictate, or parents should dictate, or, you know, give some guidance? What do you stand for? The parents giving you liberty to choose all the way through and through?
Oh, for me, it would be all the way through, as long as the child actually understands what they're talking about. Like if you're in P1 and you're telling me, for example, you want to go to Budo, I need to understand, what do you know about Budo Junior? What do you understand? Or what do you know about Budo Primary School? I need to understand. So if you understand what you're actually asking for, then go right ahead.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be as open as possible, because I have the best intentions for my children at heart, so I want to make sure that their priorities are put first, and
that they have they understand what accountability and responsibility. So if you make a decision, you have to see it through all the way. What about you, Kira? Briefly,
in primary, I think you have to dictate guide them. But when it comes to uni and secondary, give them the liberty to choose where they want to go. Yeah,
absolutely.
Just with a bit of guidance. Yeah,
I agree. But also a few tips for parents to look out for when they're picking a school for their child, especially with the reopening of schools coming next month. Because one other thing that is a concern, and I'm a parent, is that our children still going to get the same quality of education that they got before the lockdown, before the pandemic. Because right now, with the increase in tuition and school fees, a number of teachers are not returning to the classroom, because my son's favorite teacher is not returning to his school, so he asked me to change his school. You understand? You get? So, but anyway, a bit of advice for parents who are looking for a school that they can choose for their children, you know, with the reopening happening and it's coming up on your screen. Number one, look out for the curriculum and co-curricular activities. To a large extent, a good school stands apart because of its curriculum. So if they have a really good curriculum that is not just theory but involves also practical skills, then I think that's a school that you should consider. And also the co-curricular activities, please do not put your children in schools where their talents are going to be buried or whitewashed. Take them to schools where they can actually enhance their talents and understand that this is also an alternative for a career path in the future. Number two, student to teacher ratio. You know how many some schools have, like, say, 80 students in a class and there's just one teacher? Look out for those, you know, look out for the student teacher ratio. Ensure that you put your child in a school where every child or your child is going to be able to interact with your teacher, and the teacher is going to be able to give each student, you know, attention. And then the next one is the teaching and learning styles. Like I said, put your children in schools where they incorporate practical skills into the theory that they are teaching them. And it's not just theory, because when they are done with school, they're coming into the world to apply those skills that they have learned. And if they have no training, or, you know, have no training or basis to any of the theory that they have studied, then they're just going to be very confused, and adulting is going to be very difficult for them. And then your children's needs and interests, like Shivan said, consider your children's needs and interests. Is very important if you want your child to thrive. Ask them.
Yes.
You know, ask them.
Do you want your
consult? Is this the school you really want?
Do you like the food?
Dictate first, then consult later.
Do you like the food?
And then also you need to consider proximity from your house. Are you going to put them in a boarding school? Are you going to put them in a day school? And how are you going to maneuver and manage the, you know, the drop-offs and pick-offs from school? So it's very important to find a school within your vicinity, so that it's easier for the pickups and drop-offs. And if the child is far, perhaps you should consider boarding school, or put them in a school where they have a school van. And then the next one is competence of the faculty. The school has to be competent and have a good reputation. Ensure that, number one, that the school is registered under the Ministry of Education and Sports, because you will go through, you know, I don't know how long, 7-6 years paying tuition, and at the end of the day they're telling you they're not registered. It does not exist.
We lost the certificate.
Hey, we lost the certificate. Many questions, many stories. And then the next one is budget. We are in a tight spot with the pandemic. Incomes have been very scarce, so please don't break your back. And then the last thing is transparency. Put your child in a school where the head teachers and the teachers can communicate openly and honestly with you. It is very important. Have a good relationship with your children's teachers. And that is all I had for you on this segment of Our Views. Conversation continues on our Twitter and Facebook, and that is at CTV Uganda. Please leave your comment. We always love to hear from you. Don't forget to use the hashtag CTV Sunrise. Coming up is Kieran Otozo with our next hot topic of the day. Stay tuned and don't blink.